Hey friends, welcome back for another video. My name is Tanya for those of you that are new here, and I am a watercolor artist. So in my last video I painted a feather for you using the watercolor brush pens and regular watercolor. But then after the video I started thinking one of the most beautiful feathers out there is the peacock feather, and why didn't I paint that for you? So I'm going to be painting that for you today. I hope you enjoy it. All right, so to get started, I've got my Arches watercolor paper, I've got my Winsor Newton watercolors, and I'm going to be bringing in my Arteza watercolor brush pens. If you don't have this brand, it's okay, use whatever you've got, any brand is fine. This is just the one that I started using and I just love it, so I've been sticking with it. So I've got about 5 colors here, and I'll just let you know what colors I'm using as I'm going along. And I have a couple different size brushes here. I've got a 12, a 6, and then a size 0 liner brush. So if you have one of those and you're following along, pull that one out, because that's a really good one to have for this painting. All right, and just Google any image you want of a peacock feather. It could be a photograph, it could be a painting, whatever you want. All peacock feathers look a little bit different. So you're just going to start with a little arc here of where the feather starts. And I'm going to be lightly sketching mine out. And then it's got this beautiful like round thing at the end here. All these colors, it's like royal blue and teal and gold. It's just, they're really, really pretty. If you've never painted a peacock feather before, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this one. All right, and then just, like I said, just keep following along with whatever image you're looking at. Mine's got a couple different lines of colors, different rows of colors going on up here. And then it's got this other little shape in there. And then all the little beautiful feathers just start coming off that. And you don't have to sit here and draw every single line. I'm just going to draw a few just so I know which way I want my lines to go. But you definitely don't have to sit here and draw every single little line. I just want to know which direction I'm going to be going. Okay, and then actually one of them comes down a little bit further like this, all this beautiful color. And then it kind of comes back up, almost like a teardrop. It's really pretty, like that. All right, so the one that I'm looking at has more of this like royal blue color in the middle. So I'm gonna be pulling in a little bit of any blue that you have, it doesn't matter. Mine's more of a royal blue here. And we're going to be going over these with our regular watercolor first, and then we're going to be bringing in the Arteza brush pens for more detail in a little bit. Right now we just want to get our base coat down. And the image that I'm looking at is a little bit darker up towards the top. So I'm going to be adding a little bit more up here, make it a little darker. Okay, let that dry a little bit. And then we'll be pulling in a little bit of my, I've got kind of a mixture going on my palette here. It's a little bit of blue-green and green-blue. I just love those two together. It makes this like beautiful aqua color. But again, whatever color you choose is totally fine. And I'm gonna just start filling in part of the feather here. And I'm working dry, wet on dry right now. It's just a little bit easier to control at this point. For this painting, it's a little bit easier to control. If you want to work wet on wet, definitely go for it. Challenge yourself. You just don't have as much control. That's all. And your colors just kind of lay where they want to. But I think for this painting, the wet on dry is perfect. And I'm using my size 6 brush right now. Just going to go ahead and fill in my little area. Like that. It's pretty. All right, I'm going to start bringing in, I think this is yellow ochre. I'm going to bring in a little yellow ochre. And it's okay if your colors bleed together. If you don't want them to bleed together, then leave some space between them, or dry your painting first before you go on to the next one. To me, it doesn't really matter, especially because we're going to be bringing in our watercolor brush pens, and adding a little bit more detail so it doesn't really bother me at all. Now, whatever painting or photograph you're looking at, it might have the colors in a little bit of a different, reversed or whatever. They're all a little bit different, so don't worry if yours is looking a little bit different. And I'm actually gonna bleed these two together on purpose. Just taking a little bit of water, and I'm gonna bleed these two together. There we go. All right, I'm gonna add a little bit more of that tealish color here in the middle. And where the teal and the gold meet up together, it might form this greenish color, and that's okay because peacock feathers do look green and teal and gold. So it's okay if you're starting to get this green wash in there. Like mine right here, totally fine. And again, if you don't like that, just blow dry or use your heat gun or just wait until your feather is nice and dry. All right, I am going to do the little line coming down, and I'm just doing that in teal. It doesn't really matter what color you do that. And I'm gonna take my, no, you know what? I'm gonna stick with my size 6, and I'm gonna start bringing out some of these like little feathers. Kind of go with a light hand. We are gonna be bringing in our liner brush in a minute, but just go over it every so often with your size 6 from that little stem. I don't know what you call this, but from like that little stem out. There you go. And if you hear that snoring in the background, I have 2 dogs in the room with me, and they are, they're both sleeping, and one of them snores really loud. All right, so I'm gonna bring those out. Now I don't wanna fill it in all the way because I wanna leave room for my other colors, okay? So just keep going. And you can start curling them if you want to. You can put a little twist at the, at the end here. You can just curl them, have fun with this. All right. And right now I've just done that aqua color. If you want to start bringing in some of that gold color, that I believe it's yellow ochre that I'm using, you can. Maybe in between. It doesn't have to be spaced apart perfectly. These aren't perfect. Just every so often, just drop some in. And you're gonna wanna leave a little bit of room for that liner brush. We're just doing a couple thick ones here and there, but the liner brush is gonna make it look super detailed. And if you don't have a liner brush, I recommend going to get one. I love mine. All right, so now I'm pulling in my liner brush, and I'm gonna be bringing in, let's do a little bit more of that teal color. So watch, between this line and that line, watch the difference. Look at that. See how much more detailed that is? It's thinner, and it's just got a little bit more of a delicate touch. Just adds a little more detail. And you can layer as many of these as you want. Now, the reason we did our 6 first was just to kind of give it a little bit of a push and pull between the thick and the thin, but also to fill up our page a little bit faster. Otherwise, if we did all this with our liner brush, we'd be here forever. And you could, if you've got that kind of time and patience, go for it. I'm sure that would be beautiful. But for the sake of the video, I used my number 6 for some of this. But look at that detail you're getting. You're just filling in. And it's okay if it's starting to bleed together down here. Totally fine. I mean, these are all, and even up here too, if you want to start going over some of them, we are going to be using our brush pens for some of this, so you don't need to go over too much. But if you want to go over some of this, part here that we had painted, you could definitely do that. That is pretty. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit, no, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go ahead and dry this really quick, and then I think we're gonna start bringing in our brush pens. right, so I wanted to kind of match up my colors to what I used with my Winsor Newton. I wanted to match up my Arteza brush pens. So I'm using a bumblebee, a teal, bright blue, blueberry, and sunset yellow. So those are the 5 colors I pulled to kind of match what I've got going on here. But whatever color you choose is totally fine. I'm going to start with the teal, and I'm going to go over what I had just done here, and I'm going to be bringing in, look at that. You can see the difference already. It just adds a little bit of a pop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be bringing in all these little lines here, because they all connect down here, and you can bring them up if you want to. Because if you look at the feather really closely, you will see all, it's all the little feathers coming together that create this beautiful form here. So you are going to have a ton of lines going on in here. You know what? I'm going to add a few down here also. And I think I'm just going to go over like where I had done with my number 6. I think I'm just going to go over those. And we can keep filling in as we go along, but just start out with not as many, because it's easier to add than take away. With watercolor, you can't really take anything away. You can lighten something up, but you can't take it away. So just kind of be sure where you want it. So that's why I'm not going to start out with too many. And I'm going to put that little stem thing going on down there. All right. I am going to pick up my golden yellow one. It's called Sunset Yellow. And I'm going to go over where we had done our yellow ochre. And again, if it's starting to look green on you, that's fine. Where the teal and the yellow and the blues meet up, it turns green. So it may start turning green on you. That's okay. All right, I'm going to go over where I did my yellow ochre. Just to give it a little bit more pop. And if you wanted to go over this again with just your regular watercolors, let's say you don't even have brush pens at all, don't worry about it. Just keep layering it with your watercolors. You'll get the same effect. All right, I'm going to bring in a little bit of this other blue, bright blue it's called. It's a little bit more of an aqua color. And the faster you make your line, the more grainy it looks. If you go nice and slow, your line won't be grainy. So take your time if you want, a nice clean line. But see these, how they're really grainy here? It's because I went over it really fast, like that. So the faster you go, the more grain you're gonna get. But if you wanna take your time and do a nice line, it'll be a little bit more solid. And it also depends on what paper you're using too. All right, I am gonna do up here, I'm gonna take my blueberry color, and I'm gonna go over that dark royal blue that we had done. And I'm just gonna kind of outline it a little bit, and then I'm gonna bring in these little feathery marks here. I'm just using the tip, and I'm adding some detail. I'm just going over it. Just adding a little bit of detail to this. So it looks feathery, like that. Look how pretty that is. You know what? That is so pretty that I think I'm going to end up doing another little one. Maybe a little layer right here, right by the yellow. Just using the tip, and I'm just going around. Now make sure your lines are pretty much going in the same direction of where the feather lines are going. You don't want to go opposite of the feather lines, because then it's not going to look right. All right. And I'm going to pull in a little bit of this bumblebee, just to give it a little bit more of a pop. And I'm gonna go on my white part of my paper here, because then it'll show up a little bit better, because this is a lighter color that it won't show up too much on the darker. So make sure you go over some of your white of your paper here. You can try and get rid of some of that white. But you don't have to get rid of all of it, because peacock feathers, some of them are really super airy. And there's a lot of, they're like see-through almost. You could see the background. There. Pretty. All right, I'm gonna take my number 6 and I'm gonna wet it now. Now's the fun part. Oh, that was fun too, but this is fun now to see the transformation here. So just start going over and adding some water. Look at that. And if you don't want them to bleed all the way together, kind of skip certain sections and come back to it later so that they're not bumped up to each other. If you want to leave some of that detail. But we can always go in and add more detail again with another layer of the markers if you want to. So what I'm doing is I'm going over my teal first because it's a little bit darker. Going over my teal areas. Look at that, it's just bringing them to life. Wow. I just love that. Look at the difference between this side and that side. If you love that look of the more detailed, then you don't even need to add water if you don't want to, but look at this, wow. Okay, let's go ahead and do our teal on the other side. And I'm starting from that little stem area and I'm working my way out just like I did with the paint. And then now I can start going over some of those yellows. Let's see how that's blending in together beautifully. That's why I did my teals first. So it's gonna start creating this limey green color. I think that's about all I'm gonna do because I do love some of that white negative space showing. All right, we never did the yellow in here. So let's go over that. If you want to start closing up a little bit of that lighter area, you can. I'm just bringing up a few little strokes here and there. All right, we're gonna go ahead and dry this and then we're gonna add another layer to it. Okay, so I went ahead and I dried this and I'm gonna add a little bit more of that bumblebee yellow. Let's see if we can lighten up this area a little bit. A little bit. If you want, what you can start doing also is go back in with your, maybe a different yellow of your regular watercolor. Yeah, that shows up better. So I'm just going over it with a little bit of yellow from my Winsor Newton palette, a brighter yellow. Just lighten that up a little bit. And you can start feathering it out if you want to. Bring it up onto that teal. There. And I think I'm gonna do my original purpley blue just to bring it up a little bit here. I just wanna darken it a little bit more towards the top here. You know what? I think I want to bring a little bit of that color down into the stem also. Maybe a few coming up. Like that. Oh yeah, that really adds a little pop. I'm not even seeing that on my image, but you know what? Do whatever makes you happy. That's really pretty. See, I like a little bit of a pop. It gives it a little bit more of another layer. That's really, really pretty. I think I might add a few towards the top here. And then I'm gonna do something a little bit different that I don't normally do in my videos and on my paintings, but I'm gonna add a little bit of a metallic color. So I picked up this Arteza, they're watercolors, they're half pans, and it comes in this metal box, and they are metallics, watercolor metallics. So I think I'm gonna be using a little bit of my gold color and this little plum color, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of detail into my painting here. If you don't have these, use any kind of metallic watercolors you have. If you don't even wanna do the metallic, that's totally fine also. But I'm gonna be using my size 6, and I'm gonna go ahead and wet my gold here. I think this one was called Aztec Gold, if I remember right. I'm gonna add a little bit of gold onto my golden areas. Changes the color a little bit. So if you don't want to do this, don't do it. It does change your colors a little bit. But at the end, when it dries, it's shimmery. And I think that's really cool. I'm going to do a little bit of that gold down here, pretty much on where I've got like some yellows. And it just adds a little bit of a shimmer when this dries. But if you don't want to change your painting too much, stick with colors that kind of match your painting. And I'm going to do a little bit of this purpley plum, it's called, right here. But see how that's changing my painting a little bit? But I like that look. It's giving it a little bit more dimension, a little bit more pop. But I'm going to add a little bit of that plum right there. All right, let's dry this and see what it looks like. All right, one thing I did notice that I want to do is I want to add a little bit more up here in this area. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to take my water, and I'm just going to try and get rid of some of those white space just up in this area here. If you want to bring in a little bit more paint, you can. You could bring in your watercolor brush pens, whatever you want. I'm using a little bit of water and seeing how much I can actually pull up from this because I have a lot of paint on my page. I'm just trying to use what I have here. If it doesn't work out, then I'll go ahead and add more. But I just want to see if this will, and I think it's doing what I want it to do. So we're good. Just want to fill in this area a little more. That's really pretty. I am going to use, I'm going to put a little bit of my, see when it's wet, it doesn't work very well. So you're going to have to dry that again and use, if you want to use your watercolor brush pens, use it while the paper's dry because it just doesn't work as well when your paper's wet. But I can go ahead and layer a little bit of my regular watercolor right in there. There. Just wanted to get that a little bit darker and greener up in this area. Really pretty. All right, let's see if you can see that metallic in the camera. I definitely see it. So there's a lot of metallics going on in here, and then that little purple we did. If I maybe tilt this a little bit, you can see some of the shimmer. I'm not sure. But look how pretty that is. Okay, so one thing that I did want to show you was the one that we just finished. I used mostly my number 6 paintbrush, and this one I used mostly my liner brush. So you can see how it's a little bit more delicate in some areas and a little bit more feathery and airy. So I just wanted to show you the difference between the two. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you liked it and learned a little something. And if you did like it, please give me a thumbs up, and you can make a comment in the comment section. And you can also subscribe if you want more videos like this one. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. Bye.